I found something that could be a big deal. What arguably would have been the biggest piece of evidence against Alec Murdaugh went missing as a result of the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office. The same office Alec's great-grandfather, grandfather, and father were the head of for almost 100 years. This episode will cover how Alec could have taken Maggie's phone down the road and threw it out the window without it recording any movements, an incident that neither the prosecution or defense wanted you to be aware of, and how Alec Murdaugh could have been found guilty much easier if an investigator would have done one simple 4-second task. Before we dive in, I want to quickly let you know that the next video I post will be my last Murdaugh video, at least for a long time, as I'm gearing up to release new videos on a series of deaths and disappearances in the small mountain town of Walhalla, South Carolina. There's nothing wrong with just telling stories, but I've realized that's not really fulfilling for me. I really want to move the story forward. There's also a million other people telling the Murdaugh story, many of whom are doing a great job. I want to make a difference, and I want to bring you into stories that you don't already know about. So for over a year, I've been making trips to Walhalla to meet with the friends and families of these victims, as well as former and current investigators on these cases and the sheriff of the county. I've even gotten to know one of the main suspects over the phone, as well as his family, who believes he's innocent and might be right. I want to thank you for watching and sharing my Murdaugh videos, as they were able to fund this next series, and I wouldn't be able to do it without you guys. If you haven't yet subscribed, but you think you'd be interested in this next series, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it when it's posted. Let's dive in. There's only two main things I'm going to cover in this episode, and this first one is pretty quick. After the murders of Paul and Maggie, the prosecution alleged that Alec took Maggie's cell phone with him back to the house, and had it with him as he left for his parents' house. Alec's GPS data shows he slowed the car down a bit here, and this is the location Maggie's phone was found the next day. But from the moment Alec began driving away to the moment he reached the location Maggie's phone was found, there was no movement recorded on Maggie's phone. The defense made a big deal of this in the trial. If Alec had Maggie's phone with him driving down the driveway and down Moselle Road before throwing the phone out of the window at 45 miles an hour, how does Maggie's phone have no movement recorded during this same time frame? Well, it's incredibly important to understand how to interpret the cell data used at the trial. The iPhone doesn't record any and all movements on the phone. It only records specific types of movements. There were three main types of data used to show movement on Alec, Maggie, and Paul's iPhones: steps, the raise to wake feature, and an orientation change. The iPhone will try to record your steps as it keeps track for the fitness app. The phone intentionally tries not to record movements that are not steps, like car rides, for example. The raise to wake feature is designed so that when you pick up and look at your phone, you don't have to press anything for the screen to turn on. This feature is not supposed to light up just at any movement. In fact, it tries not to, as that would consume more battery. Orientation change is when the screen flips based off of how the phone is held. A phone will only register an orientation change when the screen is already lit up. What I'm trying to explain here is when we see a phone record these features, we know the phone is moving, but a phone can be moving around without recording any of these types of movements. If Alec simply placed Maggie's phone on the center console, drove down the driveway and down Moselle Road before tossing Maggie's phone out of the window, it's not at all unlikely that the phone wouldn't record any movement. Being able to prove that Alec was the one who did this would have been potentially the biggest piece of evidence in this case. So why didn't SLED just compare Alec and Maggie's GPS data? They would be able to see Alec's phone, SUV, and Maggie's phone traveling the same route at the same time, proving Alec had Maggie's phone and threw it out the window. They could have done this if Maggie's phone had been handled properly, but it wasn't, and Maggie's GPS data was lost forever. The digital data trail played a huge part in convicting Alec Murdaugh. There is tons of digital information out there online about pretty much everyone, and anyone can find anything on the internet. Trust me, I know this fact better than most because oftentimes I'm the one scouring the internet to find information on people. I want to thank Aura for sponsoring this video. I remember using these resources that I developed to look into myself and see what was out there. I was shocked at just how much personal information there was about me online. Addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, information on people I was related to or close to. There was even an email address listed for a girl I dated in high school, and I'm currently 33 years old. All of this information is available to companies called data brokers who use your personal information as their product and sell it to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and anyone else that wants to learn more about you. I've been needing to clean up all of my information off the internet, but I've been so busy and a little overwhelmed by the task. That's why I was so excited when today's sponsor, Aura, reached out. Aura will identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. They'll even opt you out of junk mail and telemarketing lists. You can use my link, aura.com/Eric Allen, to try 2 weeks completely free and see how many data brokers are sharing your information. The link is in the description below, or you can scan the QR code here. Aura also monitors your emails and passwords to see if they were involved in a data breach and exposed on the dark web, and gives you recommendations on what to do. Aura found 3 places on the dark web with my info on it, 2 emails, and even a password to an app I use on my phone. Aura's app also features a VPN, password manager, real-time credit identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and protects your devices from malware. Aura has almost every internet safety tool you'll ever need, all inside one app. Let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. If you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link. You'll be shocked at how much of your information Aura finds exposed over those 2 weeks. Go to aura.com/Eric Allen to start your free trial. Click the link below in the description or scan the QR code on the screen. Back to the video. When SLED collected Maggie's phone, they placed it in airplane mode. The reason they do this is when the phone is connected to a network, there's a chance that someone could alter or completely erase the phone remotely. Placing it in airplane mode severs its tie to the network and ensures that it cannot be altered. But phones also have GPS, which is completely separate from the network. And when your phone is on and in airplane mode, the GPS is still functioning. So why does this matter? Only a certain number of GPS records are kept on a phone at a time. When a new GPS point is recorded, the oldest one is deleted. By the time SLED received GPS data from Maggie's phone, all of the GPS points from June 7th had been deleted, as it was recording new ones the whole time SLED had it. Outside of placing the phone in airplane mode, there are other ways to sever its tie to the network. Simply turning the phone off will sever its ties to the network and GPS. If they had simply taken 4 seconds to hold down the power button and turn the phone off, no new GPS data points would have been recorded, and we would have all the GPS data from Maggie's phone from the day she was murdered. This is why the defense made such a big deal about the Faraday bag at the trial. A Faraday bag also severs ties to all outside connections, both cell and GPS. And the defense argued that if they had placed the phone in a Faraday bag, we would all be able to see that Maggie and Alec's phone did not leave the property at the same time and that their client was completely innocent.
And why was it important to you to get OnStar data and GPS data from the phone?
To confirm where I was saying I went, what I did, GPS. You know, at that point in time, I knew that Maggie's phone had been taken, and I knew that my Suburban and my phone and Maggie's phone never crossed paths, and that was extremely important to me. And I asked him about it every single time we talked.
Hey, it's Editing Eric here. I talk about this a bit at the end of the video, but felt like this next section needed a preface to it as well. I tend to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I think that's the best way to do things. I think more often than not, things aren't nefarious per se, but it's a simple mistake that someone made that ends up looking pretty bad. And I think that's the most likely scenario for this next thing that I'm about to speak of. And that's tough because I'm about to do this whole section where I essentially describe the possibility of this guy being corrupt. And I think more likely than not, he didn't do anything wrong. But at the same time, if there was corruption in this investigation, this is what it would look like. And no one's talked about this yet. Anyways, just keep all that in mind as you watch this next section. As I dug deeper into the missing GPS data, I found something quite troubling. Remember, the big mistake here, and the reason the GPS data was lost, was because the phone was put in airplane mode as opposed to simply being turned off. I started by listening to all testimonies that involved finding Maggie's cell phone. At this point, I had assumed that SLED found it and that the phone being put in airplane mode was simply a huge mistake. But then I watched John Marvin's testimony relating to Maggie's phone.
Somebody brought to my attention, says, listen, if Buster or Alec, if they have an app on their phone, like Find My Phone or Find My Friends or an app like that, they said you very likely can find out where the phone is if the battery's not dead. And so I went to Buster, he opened it up and he handed me the phone, and I see Maggie's name and I press it and it pings Maggie's phone just out front of the property. I hate to say it, but I said, holy shit, there it is. I walk over, I knew Duffy Stone, he was the solicitor, I knew one of his investigators. I walked over to them, said the exact same thing, and they immediately said, absolutely. Let's go find this thing before the battery goes dead.
Was the phone
And I rode with those agents, the solicitor's office agents.
was the phone ultimately located on the side of the road?
Absolutely. We found it in a matter of minutes.
In case you've forgotten, Alec's great-grandfather, grandfather, and father were the heads of the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office for almost 100 years. If Alec was going to be able to influence this investigation, it would be through this agency. Alec's father's successor, Duffy Stone, was still in office at the time of the murders and was at Moselle when this phone was found. But the person I want to focus on here is an investigator for the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office, Dylan Hightower.
I currently work for the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office as an investigator. I also supervise the criminal intelligence unit within our office. I got in with John Marvin. I had possession of the phone the entire time. Two of our other investigators, Solicitor Jojo Woodward and Investigator Donnie Hutto, rode with me back towards the general area of where the device was showing.
Someone from the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office finding the evidence that becomes the biggest missed opportunity in this whole case definitely feels off. But then Dylan mentions that he never actually touched the phone.
And did you ever personally pick up Maggie's phone?
I never touched the phone. Once I identified the location of where the phone was, I contacted Captain Ryan Neal with South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. He sent a team with Special Agent Katie McAllister and Special Agent Jeff Croft to take possession of the device.
There were multiple occasions where it's intentionally made clear that Dylan never touched the phone.
You did not physically pick the phone up, correct?
I never once touched the phone, no, sir.
You observed it being picked up, correct?
I did, yes, sir.
Somebody's written on this, that's not you.
No, sir, it's
Because
not.
you never touched the phone.
I did not, no, sir.
All right.
And did you have any further to do with Maggie's phone after it was collected?
I was provided the extraction once that was completed.
Okay.
Yes, nothing further with the actual device.
Okay.
And I don't think he could lie about this. If he tried to tamper with the phone, or if he was the one who put it in airplane mode before SLED showed up, the phone would record those inputs, and SLED would be able to see that it was tampered with before they collected it. SLED agent Katie McAllister handled the phone before placing it in the evidence bag. So my thought at this point was it was probably her fault, not Dylan Hightower's fault, that the phone was put in airplane mode. But then I watched her testimony.
I had gloves. Captain Neal retrieved the phone from where it was laying. I was standing right beside him when he got a phone call. He handed me the phone with my gloved hands. I held the phone for Investigator Hightower to take a picture of it. The phone call was Captain Neal receiving the passcode. He asked me to confirm it. I typed it in. We confirmed that it was the right passcode. I locked the phone. At that point, Investigator Hightower asked me to put it in airplane mode, which I did.
So Dylan didn't physically take the phone and place it in airplane mode, but it seems like he was the one who instructed that to happen. I'd love to give Dylan the benefit of the doubt here, and maybe we should. Maybe he didn't know that placing the phone in airplane mode wouldn't preserve the GPS data. But I would think preserving GPS data would be cell forensics 101, the basics, and Dylan has extensive training in cell forensics.
And you testify a lot ago. You've got pretty extensive training experience dealing with cell phones, correct?
Yes, sir. Every case, I would say 95% of all of our cases we put to a courtroom involve all forms of digital forensics, cell phone extractions, cell phone records, things of that nature. It's a part of our everyday life. I attended a 4-week on-the-job training at the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division and the Fusion Center for Criminal Intelligence Analysis School. Afterward, I attended the PenLink Call Analysis Training Center there in Columbia as well. In 2013, I became a Class 1 certified law enforcement officer. In 2014, I attended the ETS Fundamentals of Call Detail Record Analysis in Pinehurst, North Carolina. In 2015, I attended and became a Sistine SecureView cellular forensics operator to obtain the evidence from a specific device or telephone, cellular telephone. Later on in 2015, I attended a course, Gladiator Cellular Forensics course, where we learned about ESPA and GAR. ESPA stands for Enterprise Sensor Processing and Analytics. GAR stands for Gladiator Autonomous Receiver. Essentially, that class taught us to use specific devices and software to identify digital footprints of cellular towers within a specific area. In 2017, I attended a operator course for Black Bag Mobilize, which is a forensic tool to extract data off of a cellular telephone. In 2018, I attended the FBI CAST. CAST stands for Cellular Analysis Survey Team, on a class involving historical cell site analysis, which identifies tower activity, tower orientation, sector information of incoming and outgoing calls on a specific telephone number.
And Investigator Hatter, I'm gonna stop you there. So as part of your job as investigator at 14th Circuit, Your role is to help with cell records and cell tower information, correct?
Yes, sir, among other things.
And you've also had training on downloading and doing extracts from phones as well, correct?
I do, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, so let's recap. It appears that the person responsible for Maggie's GPS data going missing, which would have been huge evidence against Alec Murdaugh, is an investigator with extensive forensic cell data training for the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office. At the trial, Alec says that in the months following the murders, he kept asking about comparing his phone data and Maggie's phone data, so it could be proven that they were never together. But I wonder if he was asking because he knew that asking would make him appear innocent, and that there was no risk in asking because he knew the data wasn't there.
And had you repeatedly asked SLED to get the data from the OnStar, from the cell phones, to evaluate whether your phone and Maggie's phone were ever moving at the same time? You made that multiple requests.
I repeatedly asked David Owens about that information.
And when you asked that question, were you aware that Maggie's phone had been located, down the road, half a mile or more? Is that right?
Yeah, I knew where her phone had been located.
And why was it important to you to get that information?
Because I knew that whoever had done this to them had Maggie's phone. And I knew that my phone and Maggie's phone and my car were never together.
I think one of two things is happening here. And honestly, both are pretty troubling. Either Dylan Hightower knew what he was doing, and Maggie's GPS data going missing was not a mistake. Or, when Dylan Hightower is listing his credentials for knowing about cell data forensics, they aren't what we think they are. I would think that preserving GPS data would be cell forensics 101, but maybe when he listed he was certified in this and that, he's not listing multi-day long in-person training courses, but online courses that take 30 minutes to complete. He's not really a cell data expert. The reason this second possibility is still so troubling is it makes me question any and every expert that we hear in court. I think the reason no one has picked up on this yet is, one, I had to sift through a massive amount of info and testimony to piece this together. And two, I don't think either side, the prosecution or defense, wanted this incident to be fully known or understood, as it just hurts both sides. For the prosecution, it could damage the integrity of the investigation, and for the defense, it potentially implicates their client in influencing this investigation. There was an interesting moment where Dick, one of Alec's defense attorneys, kind of wanted to have his cake and eat it too. In this next clip, he touches on the fact that it was weird for people from the 14th Circuit Solicitor's Office to be at the crime scene. I think he wants the jury to think the investigation was improper, but he doesn't want to go too deep, because if he does, the jury will not only think parts of the investigation were improper, but they were improper in his client's favor.
In some cases, when no arrests are made, I would still arrive or respond to the crime scene.
And you took Solicitor Duffy Stone with you, the chief prosecutor for the circuit, right?
We rode in separate vehicles, but yes, he was along with me, yes.
And I think I saw somewhere in evidence he actually took photographs that morning, did he not?
Yes, sir, he did.
Is that usual? That the solicitor go around doing evidentiary photos?
Not at all. With the way his mind works, he goes in and he thinks of every idea possible of what could possibly be an issue later on down the road if he prosecutes a case, and he wants to make sure that's all documented in his own phone.
And so if he takes a picture and wants to use it in the prosecution, does he introduce it, authenticate it, and take the stand, authenticate it, and then come back down? Or he ask himself questions?
No, sir, he does not.
Let me move on to something a little more productive.
One more thing as it relates to Dylan Hightower. It was talked about in the trial how the call records they got from Alec's phone and the call records acquired from Verizon had discrepancies. Essentially, calls were missing from Alec's phone, like he deleted them. I never understood why Alec would delete some of these calls, as he made them on purpose so it would look like he still thought Maggie was still alive.
All right, you responded to John Marvin's hunting property. Why did you go there on that day, June 10th?
I was requested to extract cellular phones from Alec Murdaugh, Randy Murdaugh, John Marvin Murdaugh, and Buster Murdaugh, while they're all being questioned by SLED agents.
So we have another instance of something going missing on a phone that Dylan Hightower was involved with. I'm not going to go into why this could have happened, but like before, this could be nefarious, incompetence, or Dylan might have nothing to do with these missing call logs on Alec's phone at all. I'm kind of going off script here, but I always feel a tension between two opposing forces when dealing with something like this. On one side, I see an instance where corruption could be happening, and I've uncovered it and feel a responsibility to bring it to light. But I don't know that it's corruption. It could simply be a mistake. Dylan Hightower could be a really great guy that's an asset to law enforcement, that's really worked hard all his career and made one simple mistake that looks really, really bad. And so I guess I just wanted to take a side note to acknowledge that tension. It's tough when both options almost don't feel right. It doesn't feel right not talking about this. But it doesn't feel right talking about it knowing he might be completely innocent too. And